Hello and welcome to our introduction to watercolor. I'm Cynthia Miller. I'm going to show you a little bit about setting up your workspace so that you'll be ready to join us on our first circle. First of all, I'd like to talk about the color wheel. This is a really very cool tool to help you to decide what your color scheme is going to be. This side is all about adding red to certain colors, adding yellow, adding blue, adding white, and adding black. So if you find a color, you can sort of figure out how to mix it, okay? On the other side is the combinations of complementary colors, split complementary, triad, and there's different ones that look really well together. So no matter what your color that you'd like to start out with, this will give you an idea of what's going to look good with it, okay? So it's a really handy tool. And I'm just going to talk a little bit more about color. I've been using a color, really nice quality actually. It's called Van Gogh, and this is the tube that it comes in, or you can actually purchase little squares. And this is, you know, a nice quality. I purchased this set not that long ago, and this is less quality, not quite as good, and I knew that. It's just that I just wanted to try out all these colors because these come pre-mixed, and with the Van Gogh you'd have to mix these up, which is fun, but it's just sort of really handy to have them all ready to go. So it doesn't really matter what your setup is. If you've got, you know, just a small square of colors, it's really easy to get started. Now I also have used these colors before. These are really fun to travel with, and they're very easy to use. You basically just dip it into the water and then into your little bowl here. So this is really easy to use. These little plastic trays are great. Or you can just write right on the page with that pen and pencil. I'm going to show you the paper setup. This is an old clipboard that I like to use because it's really easy to hold on to and move around. I like to tape down my paper onto a flat board, and this keeps your paper smooth when you're adding color and water, because sometimes it will ripple if you just have it loose. So really good idea to tape that down. And that's the size we use. It's 7 by 11. And you can make squares from that size. These are a nice size. You can use these for bookmarks, make really nice little gifts. And the brushes that I use are really, you know, you don't need very many. We've got 2 square ones, one small and one large, and tiny one with point, and this one is round, and then this one is a little bit different. This has got it's pointed as well, a little bit more volume of paint in this one. So just whatever you have is going to work out just fine. I suggest that you get a nice light drawing pencil and an eraser. It's really a good idea to draw your design ahead of time, and that way that you have control of the you know, perspective and that sort of thing. If you don't draw it out, then you tend to go off your design. It's a little bit more difficult to follow. So I'm just going to show you a little bit about wet on wet. So wet brush on wet paper, and also wet brush on dry paper, and then a little bit about the dry brush, because it gives you different effects. So we're just going to use the bigger brush, which is what we normally do for wetting down an area of your paper. And what I'm going to do is just tap that on a cloth I have here. It's a really good idea to have a cloth handy, just to, you know, sort of take up the excess. And I'm just going to paint some water on this card and get that ready to dab some color into it. Now color is really easy to mix up. I've got a couple of dry spots here. This one, as you can see, is dry, and you just basically have to put some water into it with your brush. And it's a good idea to mix up your colors with lots of water, and then you can add pigment to it as you go. So clean your brush and then add more pigment. So you can just keep doing that. and you might want a little darker color, so you can add maybe, you know, clean your brush and then add a little bit of darker. And then that's going to really give you a nice water-filled color. The more pigment you add, the stronger the color will be. And you know, there's different shades of this. You could add white to this. You could add black or a different gray with this to get a different tone or hue. And so we'll talk all about that when we get painting. But I'm just going to add this little bit of color to the water that I've added on this card. And if you notice that it just sort of spreads, right? And you can actually manipulate that paint to move around. If you want to make a really kind of cool background, the paint is going to move through the water. And if you find that you've got too much water on your picture or your piece, you can just sort of sop it up with a dry brush and wipe it off like that. So that's a really easy way to do that. And you can also make strikes through it. That's not exactly visible from there, but you can make marks through it and pick up paint as you go. So there's a few different techniques we're going to look at. This is just to sort of get you started, to get your paint set up. Now wet on dry would be the same amount of paint in your brush, basically. I'll do the green again. And I always dab the extra onto that cloth. And this is going to go on a dry paper. So as you can see, it's just a straight line. And this actually creates a hard line. So you can see the difference. This is more of a mottled look to it. I'm going to add a little bit of darker color just to show you a little bit more that it will start to spread on the wet paper. You can add more to it. So that's the difference. That's the wet on wet. This is the wet on dry that creates the hard line. And then the dry on dry. So you're going to still have the same color there, at least in the demonstration, but you're going to dry it off a little bit and, you know, not have so much moisture in there. And that's when you're going to get a really light amount on the paper. You can see this one's spreading, this one's still just staying within the lines. And so you can manipulate this one a little bit. You can draw it out, or you can, you know, hold it like that and it will drip down. You can draw a line through it and pick paint up out of it. So there's lots of different ways that we can manipulate the paint. And that's what is so fun about watercolor, is because you can do that. That's sort of the setup to get your paper ready, to get your brushes out, to understand a little bit about watercolor. Now cleanup would be in, you know, once you're all through, you don't ever want to leave your brushes in your water. You want to make sure that you take them out, take them into the sink, and this is just like a little bar of soap inside a container. And I put my brushes right in there and do this under the tap. And then I massage them a little bit and get that soap, and then I rinse them. And then I put them to dry in a cross, so they're sitting across. If you put them up, then the dampness will drain into the brush and it will become weak. So you want to just be careful of that. So we're going to be doing a few different pieces. I love my yoga girls with the energy. There's a crystal picture and another of the yoga girls. And, you know, I love this because it really does help to bring out your creative side. We start with a little bit of a meditation to help you get started, help you, you know, sort of ground you, and it really does take you away from your busy day. Now you will be sent a template for every week and the link to the Zoom, as well as any other ideas that we might be doing for the week. Some of the things that you could have on hand are a hair dryer, because sometimes the wet, you want that to dry a little bit quicker, and so you just blow it very lightly with the hair dryer. And also maybe just a small dish of table salt, because when you sprinkle salt on wet, it creates a really lovely texture. The tape is really good to have because we might be taping off different areas of the piece. And also some rulers. And I'm not sure if you have one of these, or we're going to be doing some sacred geometry. This is to make the circles. And we're not going to be too complicated. As I said, I'll send you the template. We're going to be doing all kinds of really interesting designs with sacred symbols and crystals. So I'm really looking forward to this. I hope that has helped you to set up your space and join me on the next paint circle. We'll see you then.